Today in this video, we're going to find out if we can take a 2012 Ford Escape with almost 300K on it and make it cool. So stay tuned. So the first thing we got to do is we've got to get this thing up in the air, and then we're going to show you all the parts that we're going to use to make this lift kit and wheel and tire combination happen. Let's get this thing up in the air. So what we've got is we've got two brand new struts that I picked up from Auto Shack, which is a parts retailer in Canada. And I got two of these for less than 200 bucks. I was going to go to Rock Auto, but when I added the shipping on there, well, it was going to cost me significantly more. So this was free shipping because of the price I paid for them. And we're going to be lifting this thing, or at least leveling it 2 inches in the front. And we're going to do that with these spacers that just mount basically on top of the strut. And then we just stuff the whole thing up in there. We are going to be putting the new link kits on that we talked about putting on in the last video, because these ones, although I greased them, still got a little bit of rattle in them. So we're going to be replacing those. And then when everything's all said and done, we got a clearance in around the wheel well a little bit for those bigger wheels and tires. So first thing we're going to do is get the struts off here by disconnecting the old link kits, getting rid of the ABS lines and the brake lines off that, and see if we can get those two bottom bolts off. So let's dig in. Well, unexpectedly, that just fell out. All right, so we got our strut out of here. We replaced the stub shaft on this axle because the center support bearing was bad, or at least so we thought. We took it out. Wasn't that noisy after all. Could be a wheel bearing, but when we checked it, wasn't that noisy. So what we're going to do from here is we still have to change this sway bar link, but I wanted to show you this little lift kit, which is just a leveling kit spacer to go on the top of the strut. Now when you get these, they're just studs that go up into the hole, and you've got to seat those in place. So what I did was I just took a punch or a drift and set it up into the vise and just kind of pounded them down into place. So now when I go to put this up through on the top of the strut, those aren't just all flopping around all willy-nilly. They're in place. We'll just take those nuts off and bolt this to the new strut. So let's get that done. All right, so now that we've got that in there, we've got to keep in mind that when you're putting this on, there is a little keyway right here, and we match that up on the leveling block. So now we're ready to take this, shove it up in there, and just kind of reverse the process. But first we got to get that sway bar done. I'm going to do that off camera, and then we'll get this thing put back into place. So one thing you got to keep in mind and not make the rookie mistake that I did, there's a left and a right to these struts. The right one, this tab here for the sway bar link, should be on this side. So we're going to take this one out and get the other one and pop it back in there. You see, folks, sometimes you just got to practice to make sure you're good at it. That first one slid right in there, boys. This one's being a bit of a dick. Come on. I see what the problem is. That one's not in quite straight. We'll give her a little love tap. Check the rest of them over here. They all look good. Let's try her again. Yeah, almost slide in there this time. There we go. We got her. And when you don't have 3 arms, you use your foot. All right, let's get this thing back up. And now that we've got this pushed down this way 2 extra inches, as you can tell, those holes don't line up very well. But it's because, well, I don't know why it's because, it's math. Math is because. love tap you into place. What happens? Nothing. Whose idea was it to put a lift kit on this thing? All right. This is where you need 3 hands. One to push, one to pull, and one to put the bolt in. There's one. But I got it going the wrong way. It should be going this way. Not sure it matters. All the experts down in the comments will probably tell me you got to take that bolt out the same way it came in. Yep, and you're probably right. So I think what we'll do is we'll get this top one in somehow. Somehow, I don't remember it being this difficult when we did the Grand Marquis. I wonder if I can spread those apart a little bit. Maybe. You don't have the tools you need, you use the tools you have. C-clamp acted like an extra hand. And no, I'm not putting those back in the other way because it's too difficult. So we can just snaz those on there. Put that on, and then our brake line clip can go back into place. That and our ABS sensor clip that's supposed to go on. Damn it. I'm gonna put our tie rod back into place. And our sway bar, we're going to have to get this thing pushed up and sitting on its own weight to put that in, because that is, well, 2 inches lower than it should be. Probably should have had some light on in here for you guys while we were doing this. And this clip right here that holds the brake line in place technically doesn't go on there until after you put the ABS sensor in place. Ugh. So we've got to take you out there, take this, and pop it in there, and then take you, and then pop you back in there. And then take this, slide it back into place, give it a love tap with the oversized hammer. Take our 10 millimeter that didn't break off, which is probably still stuck in 10 millimeter. Tighten up our axle nut. And the proper torque spec for an axle nut is pretty much when it stops turning. Right about there. 18 millimeter for that. That's good. 18 millimeter for that. And make sure your backing plate's not going to rub. And other than the sway bar link, which we'll do once we get the wheels and tires back on it, setting on its weight, we can just take that, because it'll push this up, and then that'll just bolt right into place. Or, if you're like me, and you realize you've been tripping over this transmission jack for the last 20 minutes, you could probably take advantage of that to lift this whole thing up and put the nut on now. Just make sure you don't lift your vehicle off the hoist if you're using a hoist. I hope that's not the strut tower creaking. There, so put that on there, put our new nut on it, and with any luck, that should spin right on. Click, click. All right, so we are done with this side down here. All we gotta do is lower it down and cinch up those 4 bolts up top. And we should be golden as far as suspension goes. So as I was putting these nuts on, we realized just how Chinesium this is. That bolt right there, I mean, it just barely took the corners off of it. Pretty much welded in place now. So it pretty well prompted me to get rid of these nuts.
These nuts? Got him!
For the stock ones that came with it. We're going to use those over again, at least 3 of them. That one ain't coming off. She's pretty much welded into place. If this doesn't stress the fact that your socket needs to be firmly seated on there before pulling the trigger, well, you know what happens. Chinesium nuts go round. So now that we've got this side done, we're going to go over there, do the exact same thing. No, we're not going to do the exact same thing because we struggled a little bit over here. We're going to go over there and get this one undone, pulled down, put the new one back into place, get everything reconnected, and hopefully have an uneventful process. I'm going to time lapse it anyways, so you guys won't have to endure the pain that I'm going to endure, but let's get it done. So is this Chinese jump pack any good? Well, we're about to find out. Asperex has sent me their AX2000 jump pack, and according to the side of the box, it's capable of boosting up to an 8-liter gas engine and a 6.5-liter diesel. It has lots of built-in safety precautions, and it comes in this neat little carrying case. And being a used car dealer in the wintertime, we run into batteries that need to be jumped all the time. And this 2013 Mazda 6 is no exception. So when we take our AX2000 out of the case, it says fully charge before use, which we've done. And what I want to know is how much of that 100% goes down once you boost it. So let's get this car boosted. So you just press the boost button and we should be able to just give her a start. And it only took 4% to boost this battery. So with 96% left, we've got plenty of boosts left in this. And it does charge up fairly quickly. With this neat little carrying case, you can throw it in your glove box or in your console, throw it in the trunk, and have it for the times you need it most. So we're gonna get this Mazda 6 all charged up, and I will leave a link in the description box down below for you guys to get your very own Asperex AX2000 booster pack. And thank you to Asperex for sending this to me. We'll be making use of it here at the shop, and thank you for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get back to work. So now that we've got this all back together, we have to take the inner fender liner out to, well, clearance the wheel well for the bigger tires that we're going to be putting on it, which means this seam right here likely is going to be giving us some issue. We've got a tab here for holding the inner fender liner, and we want to keep the inner fender liner as much as possible because it is protecting the wires here and entrance up into the engine compartment. We don't want slush and crap getting up there any more than we have to. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to keep as much of the factory fender this seam as possible, but we've got to kind of take the hammer to it and bend it over to clearance it. So what we'll do is we'll probably come about here and take a slice with the grinder, slice it, and then start bending all of this over all the way down into here and get that out of the way, because when we go to make the turns, that's probably going to be an issue. But before we go cutting anything at all, we're going to continue to get this fender liner out of here, grab one of the bigger wheels and tires, get it mounted on the vehicle, and start doing a swipe with it so that we know for sure. In fact, Junior and I did that a couple of weekends ago just to see exactly what we were up against. Take a look. So here is a set of 16-inch steel wheels with some Firestone winter tires, which is going to be perfect because we're driving this thing in the winter. These are 245/75 16s. What's on it is two 35/70s. There's about an inch or so difference in height overall with these ones versus the ones that are on it. So we may or may not run into clearance issues. I'm not thinking so, Junior. So I think one of the things that we're going to do with this is get these on the truck and see if they fit. You want to grab the impact and I think it's a 19. Those ones are a lot lighter than the steel wheels. I noticed when I was, stacking them up over there, they're pretty rugged. Obviously, the bigger tires as well. Yeah, get your nuts out of the way. You don't want to roll over them. Oh yeah, beefy. Let's get it bolted down. We'll set it down on the ground. So let her down. Oh yeah, I like that. Sticks out just a little bit.
Open the fin.
There's just a hair.
That's long.
Okay. So it is going to rub up against that right there. So just bring it back a little bit. Okay, right there. Nope, back more. There you go. So it is hitting right there. We can trim the plastic. We can heat that up, push it back so that it's not going to be much of an issue. But what do you think, Junior?
Do that, put maybe a little spacer on the strut to raise it up a little.
Well, I've got to check that strut too. I don't know. When we take that wheel off again, we should check and see.
But even just the way it sits, it looks way more badass than.
Yeah, it does. I like the black.
Faded out, old crappy alloys.
And if you look at that, just let me zoom in here. Just the way that sticks out.
It pokes out almost perfect.
Just about even, if not maybe a little tiny bit out from the fender. So she'll be a mudslinger, as well as salt and slosh and crap.
Yeah.
But I think it looks pretty good. It fills out the wheel well, and all we got to do is.
And they're good tires.
Yeah, and they're like brand new. So the purpose, Junior, tell the guys what you bought those for.
Well, originally, I had a Grand Marquis I wanted to lift, and I bought those wheels and tires, it was 8 months ago from somebody outside of town, and I was going to lift that car, and I decided to sell it off instead, fix it up, and had nothing else to do with these. So maybe thinking about doing it to my gray Crown, or even my manual swap Crown, but I don't know. That's just not that style for those. The gray one's too nice, and the white one's meant to be a
Hooner
anyway. So.
But how fun would that be? A manual swap Crown Vic that's also lifted.
Lifted with a big spoiler. He definitely gets some attention.
Yeah, and if you guys don't know what his big spoiler he's talking about, I'll flash a picture on the screen here so you guys can see that. So, anyways,
I just thought something here too.
What's that?
I think that's gonna rub. Oh, it is rubbing a tad bit, but it'll clearance, I think. And if you have to, you can grind that down.
Oh, the caliper bracket?
Yeah, it's rubbing just a slight bit.
Well, let's jack it back up in the air and spin that wheel and see what's going on there.
Yeah, like
but this has an offset,
yeah,
right? Whereas your factory ones pretty much don't. They're kind of a flush outside mount. Anyways, we'll get this jacked up, check that caliper, and see if we're going to be able to make that work. So since that video of Junior and I putting this on here, we know what we've got to do. And I do have a couple of 3mm, or I think the 3.5mm spacers. That's going to bring this out enough so that those wheels aren't going to rub on the caliper. So we've got to get to beating and banging here and finish getting this fender liner out. So let's get to it. So I guess the plan here is to just start beating away at that seam. I'm going to try and keep that tab up there to hold this in place. We're going to lose this one here. But I still have a mounting point right there. There's a screw that goes in there. So if we lose that bottom one, no big deal. But it will still hold up in here, and then we're just going to trim out inside that bottom piece. So let's see if we can get this bent over here with this small hammer. Yeah. Not enough swing. Let's get the big one. And when I say not enough swing, it's when I'm in here hammering, I'm catching my knuckles on here. So if I use the big one, I can hold it down further. And you might be wondering, Jason, why are you going at this all Neanderthal? I've lifted 2 other vehicles before that weren't meant to be lifted. A 2008 Kia Sportage and a 2003 Grand Marquis. I'll leave the links for those videos in the description box down below if you guys want to check those out. And sometimes you've got to do what you've got to do. If I cut this seam out, well, this is structural. I'll lose structure between the inner fender and the body. If I bend it over, the structure's still there. It's just out of the way. So that's why we don't cut this. All right, so now, as much as I hate lifting that wheel and tire up in there, because that's about, I don't know, 75, 80 pounds. It's a lot heavier than the stock ones. We got to get it back up there and do the swing test again with it down on the ground to see if that's going to work. Before I do that, we already know we've got to trim here in that way a little bit and come all the way down to this little indent here, because I don't know if you can see it on camera, little shiny spot right there. That's where the tire was hitting. So I think what I might do is I might actually just cut it across maybe up here a little bit, and then that way I can still use these 2 fastening points. I think that's what I'm going to do. All right, paint marker found. Give this a little rub down, so hopefully our paint marker sticks to it. And again, using a greasy rag, so I think what we've got to do is that once that's up there, we're just gonna kind of come up here like this. And then cut across there. So we'll go get our little angle grinder, just kind of zip that off, and hopefully that's enough. No trimming needed up front, as we've already indicated. So I'm kind of looking forward to getting this done so we can get it over in the wash bay and get it cleaned up. That's still sticking out that way quite a bit. I might have to go in here further. I might just hold that in place. Everything should be in place. I'll put a screw in there maybe to make sure. When it comes to lifting vehicles that aren't meant to be lifted and making a project out of it, you got to have patience, because it's going to be a lot of this, putting things together and taking them back apart and checking clearances. So now that I've got that fastened up in there, it's going to hold where it needs to be held, even without this fastener here. So now the gig is going to be, let's get that wheel and tire combination put back up there, set it down on the ground, and do our sweeps with the steering wheel and see where things are going to rub or where they're not going to rub. Come on. Way too much effort. And yes, I know, we're not putting all of them on because it's coming back off. Let's get this thing down the ground, do our sweep. So if you can see in there, we are pretty close here, so I can trim a little bit off that corner piece, which I'll do. But back in here, where my bottom of my finger, that is bent in, no worries. I don't think it's going to be a problem even when the suspension is moving. So we'll do that little fix right here on the corner of this piece so it doesn't rip that off, and we should be good. We'll spray some of that down with some black undercoating, get this trimmed, and we should be all set. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side, and we should be able to call this done. Get those wheels mounted on there for the final time, and take it for a little bit of rip around the yard, make sure it's still not rubbing. I don't think the back's going to be an issue. Everything is good there. Suspension travel is really good, and there's nothing for it to rub on anyway. So let me get this done, and then we can get it over to the wash bay and get this thing cleaned up. As you can see, she's got lots of tree grime on it. It's got some rust staining on these spots here. We'll get all that cleaned up, and when we're done, we'll be able to touch up around the wheel wells and around the door handles, at least get rid of the rusty looking stuff. Anyway, let's finish this project up first before we get over to the wash bay. We can call it done. So before we do the big reveal on what this thing looks like with the lift, and some of you are asking, well, how much of a lift is it? Well, it's a 2-inch suspension lift, and the tires alone are about 1.5 inches. So 3.5-inch lift on this 2012 Ford Escape. And I think it looks pretty amazing. No rubbing as we sit right now, just pulling it from one bay to the next. But like I said, before we do the big reveal, I want to get it cleaned up inside and out so that you guys can see the final product and my vision of what I had for this thing is very shortly after I bought it. So I'm going to go clean this thing up. That's going to be a completely different video all on its own. So in just a few seconds for you guys, you get to see the final result. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button, now is the time to do that. Make sure you like this video. We've got lots of great things coming. This one's just about done. This is just going to be a daily driver. We've got the Suburban, we've got the Chrysler Cordoba, we've got some Panther platform content, all stuff that we're going to be working on over the winter. If you like that sort of thing, make sure you're subscribed to Old Car Guy. We've got videos popping out every week and daily shorts, so make sure you tune in. And there it is. This is my 2012 Ford Escape that, yes, you can lift it and put oversized wheels and tires on it and have it look cool at the same time. I really hope you guys enjoyed this little build series on this 2012 Ford Escape. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to Old Car Guy. Don't forget to grab your Old Car Guy merchandise at the first link in the description box down below. As always, stay focused on the windshield, not the rearview mirror. I love you guys. God bless. Let's do it again in the next video.